I hate to start out this review by stating the obvious, but we're in the middle of a real drought when it comes to arcade-style racing games. If you're a fan of the over-the-top genre, then you've no doubt noticed that many of the biggest names in the arcade racing scene have either run out of gas, or spent the last decade trying to find a new personality. Thankfully, the indie studios have been keeping this style of racing alive with games like Sunrise GP, a back-to-basics racer that feels like something that would come out on the original PlayStation or maybe even the Saturn. It's a cel-shaded speedster that scratches a very specific itch, all while offering a surprising amount of content and cars. But is this arcade-style racing game too simple for its own good? Find out now when I review Sunrise GP, out now on Switch. There's no setup or story in Sunrise GP. You're not some wannabe racer trying to break into the industry or a speed-loving teenager with a death wish. It's just a game about going fast and coming in first. There's no famous rap stars, celebrities, or even licensed cars. Because this is a throwback racer that evokes a time where none of that actually mattered. In a lot of ways, this is a game that completely bucks the conventional wisdom about what gamers expect from an arcade-style racer. And you know what? It excels for that very reason. The core of Sunrise GP takes place in the Grand Prix mode, which basically acts as a rudimentary campaign. We're not exactly entering tournaments, but rather taking on a single event at 20 different locations with names like Sunny Beach, Frozen Fjords, and the Dry Lake. If all you want to do is continue the adventure and move on to the next stage, then all you need to do is place in the top 3. However, coming in first does not guarantee that you're going to earn the 3 stars and 300 credits, because in order to earn those and actually complete the level, you're going to need to beat a set time limit. Although it's tempting to want to earn the max stars and credits in every race, the game does a good job of rewarding the player for moving on and not getting stuck in any one track. You'll earn one of the 21 cars for simply coming in first on each level, some of which will actually be better suited for taking on those out-of-reach times in the earlier stages. And there's a nice selection of vehicles to choose from here too, including a Jeep, limo, sports cars, and all kinds of funky designs from the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Now, one thing that I really liked about the design of this game is that any one of these cars can win a race. This is not one of those racing games where you have to select the fastest car in order to stand a chance, because Sunrise GP will actually tailor the competition around the vehicle that you choose. This means that you'll have just as much of a chance winning with one of those slow Jeeps than you will with a fast sports car, which allowed me to test out all of the cars without ever worrying about making the wrong decision. Look, while it might not be as flashy as the Burnouts and the Ridge Racers of the past, this is an arcade-style racing game that gets a lot of the fundamentals right. For one thing, there are a lot of surprisingly interesting tracks to race. Obviously, each location has its own terrain and theme, but the tracks go out of their way to show as much of the location off as possible. We'll speed through tunnels, narrowly avoid falling off of a mountain, and then say hello to everybody in the city. And that's all in just one track. It helps that the courses are created with a stylish cel-shaded look and vibrant color palette. And with airplanes, helicopters, and even UFOs flying around, there isn't a boring track in the entire game. It also helps that Sunrise GP handles well. Although the cars feel a little light, I was impressed by how they maneuvered on the course. They're good about getting around tight obstacles and barreling through traffic. I like that the handling was tight with just the right amount of looseness that you'd expect from this style of racing game. This is the kind of game that expects that you're gonna ram a few cars off the road and then maybe slam into the wall a couple of times before you finish. So don't feel like you need to go in and be a clean driver. Personally, I found the dirtier the better. It's also worth mentioning that the computer AI is not cheap and never resorts to computer banned tactics, which is certainly a good thing. The problem is that the computer-controlled racers are, well, kinda terrible at their job. They'll routinely slam into things and cause multi-car pileups. The beginning of every race resembles a demolition derby, with 2/3 of the cars getting taken out in just the first few seconds. If you can somehow avoid the mass destruction at the start of every race, then you're almost guaranteed to shoot into first. And there's the rub. No matter where the difficulty is set, Sunrise GP is just far too easy. With the rest of the racers constantly getting into wrecks, I had no problem lapping the competition. The most challenging part of the game comes from trying to earn those 3 stars from each stage, but that has more to do with choosing the right car than overcoming the pathetic AI. I was also frustrated with the different modes, none of which include anything resembling a multiplayer race. The challenge mode sounds promising at first, but that excitement quickly evaporates when you realize that it's just a bare-bones time trial mode. There's also a quick race mode, allowing you to customize the level, laps, competition, and cars. I mean, I get why it's in the game, but I doubt anyone's ever gonna use this mode. What really should have been included in this game was a multiplayer mode that allowed for split-screen action. Without real people to race, you'll likely drop the game the moment that you've earned all the stars and cars, which will only take a few hours. Still, despite missing a few of the key ingredients, Sunrise GP nails the excitement of arcade-style racing games and does it with style. I love the cel-shaded look and the interesting color choices that were made throughout all of the many great locations. This is a fun game that gets enough right to be recommended, but it would be nice to see the first-time developer return to the series with a bigger, more robust sequel with multiplayer fun. While a bit on the simplistic side, Sunrise GP is the perfect reminder that the world needs more arcade-style racing games. With its cel-shaded look, responsive gameplay, and great track designs, first-time developer Garage 5 nails most of the racing fundamentals. Unfortunately, the game is lacking in modes and difficulty. Sadly, there's no way to play with friends, and the computer-controlled opponents barely put up a fight. Despite a few shortcomings, though, Sunrise GP is still a fun racing game that is dripping with style and full of exciting courses. It may not make up for the racing game drought, but it should quench your thirst until the next racer comes out. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your favorite arcade-style racing game? Big, small, new, or old? Boy, there are just a whole bunch of them to choose from. You see, I'm partial to a lot of the Burnout games, though I do love me some Ridge Racer, and San Francisco Rush, Outrun, Hang On, Rad Racer. Oh man, there are just so many. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back tomorrow with a look at Doom 64 on PlayStation Plus. Followed on Sunday with another episode of 10 Things We Learned This Week with Lauren Risley. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.